This is Phishwalker, how hackers evade detections like cryptids of cyberspace. Here's a little bit of who I am. My name's Nate Rice. I'm a offensive security lead at UPMC, the hospital system. Here's a few acronyms and titles from certifications if anyone cares about that. I'm from Wheeling, West Virginia, and I've been penetration testing since about 2019. So here's what you're going to learn here. This talk is how hackers are using technology to bypass phishing controls. We're going to walk through some common phishing infrastructure and what a hacker would do to set up for phishes. This is not another social engineering course. Social engineering is very boring to talk about, and this is not the talk for that. We are going to stay somewhat technical with regards to email security. If you want to talk about social engineering, I'm more than happy to talk to you guys about that in the hallway. If you see me, I'm not shy. Feel free to approach me. This talk's loosely based off of some research done by Forrest Kassler at SpecterOps. The SpecterOps guys do amazing research over there. I'd gotten to discuss and read some of their posts about email security and phishing, which inspired this talk. So without further ado, first we're going to start about what not to do when sending a phishing email. You typically don't want to attach your payload directly into your email. That gets caught instantly. Sending from a free email like Gmail, Outlook, Hotmail, etc. is generally frowned upon, while it will get past some filters, because if we block all Gmail on our email, that's going to cause some issues probably from email and support. So can't do that. It might get through, but it looks really suspicious, and signatures. Using common executable formats like exe or like malicious Word docs are kind of out now. Those get detected and sandboxed instantly, especially if they're directly attached. You do not want to do that. And don't just buy a domain and start sending immediately. Fresh domains are not good. Those are under heavy scrutiny. That looks really suspicious, like, oh, that's cool. This totally cool product is sending me a free coupon via Word doc that was registered 10 minutes ago. What could go wrong? And now we're going to discuss where do we go wrong when we send phishing emails. So we can actually troubleshoot our phishing emails via remote CSS previews. We can track image loads to see who's looking at the email in the Outlook web client and web browser. If we send an email and 10 seconds later we get a hit, our phish is not super successful. It is probably a bot. So we know we at least hit something if we got a bot response. Usually 2 to 3 visits are legitimate. So if we see a user clicking our link multiple times, that's usually a good sign that it's an actual person. I've seen a lot of phishing campaigns where we go, we have a 100% click rate. Our phishing campaigns are so good. Like, do you now? Do you? Yeah, our detection's so good. SMTP logs are super helpful. Always read your email logs when sending email. Usually, sometimes it can, if you get a bounce, it usually is pretty verbose and helpful to sysadmins, which can actually be really good information for us, like if an email account is valid or not. So let's discuss getting good targets with phishes. So you can usually use breach data to get an email list, or at least an email format of an organization if you don't already know an organization's email policy in general. So typically you'll see things like first letter of name, full-on last name at company.com. Sometimes there's a number thrown in there, which can be spammed or effectively to get a valid number, because the chances of it being more than 3 digits is pretty rare. It's usually 1 through 9. You can scrape LinkedIn to get valid phish targets. LinkedIn is super helpful for getting information about corporate entities. People love posting photos of their badge, for example, which might have an email on it or the email format, or if you're doing a physical pen test, you now have a very easy badge to fake and clone. You can use script kiddie tools like the Harvester or like phonebooks.cz to get valid email addresses. You can use industry-specific data as well. If you're sending a phish for like an organization, you can collect data from like Rate My Professor, multi-state net licensing systems for like realtors or salespeople. CPA Verify is a really good one to get emails from like accountants or any kind of finance sector. So, and then if you actually get a good compromise, or if someone were to get initial access, you can just steal the Outlook Global Access list and have a complete email list. Make sure you're tailoring your phishing emails. Hackers, if you send a blanket statement email to every employee in the organization, you're probably not going to get a lot of clicks because it's just so bland and boring. So it's either not going to be enticing enough, or it's going to be a very obvious phish. Not every employee and team is created equal here. Some employees use their work email for personal tasks. Those employees typically are more likely to click phishing emails. So sending more like coupon-based or more like personal emails typically affect those users more. Hurry up and check the box. Workers usually rush tasks, so they might not check the email as well. So you can get a little more loosey-goosey with those. So teams like support teams, for example, they're just trying to be helpful. Support and sales are customer pleasing, so they'll often talk to you a lot more versus some team that doesn't really talk to other teams and they just kind of do their thing. Like for example, if you're sending an email to the janitorial tech, they probably won't answer you, but a salesperson will more than happily keep you on the line to try to get a sale and hit their quota. So make sure you're rating your teams appropriately when sending out phishing campaigns. Okay, now with most of the social engineering and OSINT stuff collecting out of the way, here's some bad targets. Executives sign your paychecks. You really don't want to phish the CEO. They don't like that. Ask me how I know. And same with the SOC. Do not phish your security team. They know how to spot a phish. They're really good at it. We should actually pay them to do that. Yeah, don't phish the stock. And then staff that did like solo tasks. So again, like your janitors and such, you don't really look at their email, or like your janitorial staff, your yard workers, your construction types don't really look at email, even though they might have one. So they're not very good targets. Here's a really bad example of a real phishing email I got last week. This is this dog crap phishing email attempt I've ever seen. I'm going to ask everyone, please do not email Gail Acula back. Knowing my luck, this is just some poor woman who got her email stolen, and now they're just sending phishes out. So please don't harass the sender. But this is the worst email I've ever seen. Do not do this for your organizations. So now let's start about what you should do. Now that we have a good email list, we know what not to do now. Let's start getting things set up. So getting a good domain. Reputation's king in email security. Every domain has some kind of reputation or categorization. So typically from a pen testing or hacker standpoint, we have a million security products to deal with. Spam Assassin, Barracuda, Sophos, as we saw in the presentation, in the keynote earlier. There's a million security tools for email because that's the #1 entry point in every breach. Starts with clicking a phish. IP reputations are super easy to bypass. If you're running something in the cloud, restart it. You have now bypassed your IP restriction. Now, a lot of places have geolocation too. If you're phishing a European counterpart, or if you're European and watching this on a recording and you're phishing an American target, you might want to set up an email server that's hosted geologically with where you're at. That'll bypass a lot of the geolocation filters. Plus it's just weird if you're a US company and you're really niche and someone's emailing you from China, that's just generally odd anyway if you spin up a Chinese server. So spoof domains are generally a free bypass. There's two ways to go about a domain. You can either spoof your own or spoof a client if you're consulting, or you can purchase one that's already been registered years ago and just expired. So each one has some pros and cons. Pros for spoofed, they're free, and you can usually match pretty closely to the target or send directly from the target if they're spoofable. However, that's rare. Modern email securities come a really far way, especially with things of SPF or DKIM, if everyone's familiar with the two. They're effectively identity provider or just identity verification, similar to like a HTTPS certificate on a website. You can think of SPF and like DKIM as a similar control. They identify saying, yes, I really am who I say I am. You can purchase a domain. They cost money. But if you purchase one, not a brand new one, but one that's already been registered and is a few years old, and maybe someone had a really cool tech startup idea and they just bought the domain and then they never actually acted on it, I'm calling myself out there. Those can be up for grabs, and they're usually categorized. If you can get one that's categorized in the same industry as the target organization, you're much likely to get through the spam filters. If we were to be phishing a healthcare organization, I tend to do that a lot. It's really good to have a healthcare-oriented URL. You wouldn't want to use a porn site to try to phish a corporate organization because those are blocked. So reputation and categorization is king. Let's see, there's a few different ways to categorize a domain if it's not already categorized to what you want. Humble Chameleon is a custom-written tool. You can find it on GitHub. It's a really good way to categorize domains in bulk. There's also free tools like you can put your own domain into like IBM's X-Force or like Cisco Talos, and then Palo Alto has one. You can just put your URL and say, I want to be classified, I am healthcare, I am a bank, etc. Those are generally really good. You want to do that a little bit before the engagement to give it time to populate, but this greatly increases your chance of your domain getting through filters. So generally speaking, now we're going to talk about getting an actual phishing page up. We have a domain, we're good now, we have DNS set, we have our normal filtering in place, we set our own SPF and DKIM. Now let's get an actual web page. So it's really good to serve pages on hosting sites already because they do a really good job about not being spammed and blacklisted. So you can serve pages in like S3 buckets from AWS, Azure. You can even just throw some things on GitHub pages that point to another downloadable file. You can have AI write it for you. There's a million different code writing tools in AI now. So you could just use, if you're really old school, you could use HTTrack to clone a website. If you've never done that before, you really should try it. It's actually super cool. Just use the tool HTTrack. And just point it to a URL, and it'll download the web page for you and kind of reconstruct it so you can host it. Before you send an email, start actually legitimately phishing your target, you should send a few benign email filters. So email learning logic, the first email you ever send from a domain, it's highly scrutinized. So say you're an organization, I'm phishing you, I'm going to send 4 or 5 just benign, just hey, what's up, and just very vanilla emails to like support or just help at, and just hey, what's up, and just a few with no payload in it whatsoever. This kind of tells the email filter, oh, this guy just has questions, this isn't benign, it sends safe email before, it lowers your risk score. Also, whenever you're sending your initial emails up, read your SMTP logs. They're super helpful if things aren't getting delivered right. It'll usually just tell you bounced by this, or rejected because of X, or blocked by this. So reading your SMTP logs is just super helpful in general. As an actual mail sender, I highly recommend using just O365 email or MailChimp. The vast majority of organizations are using Office 365 in some capacity. So if you're using Outlook as a sending client, you're pretty much known to be whitelisted because you're sending it to yourself effectively at that point. So you're jumping through a few layers if you use O365 for your phishing campaigns. A lot of the domain providers, they'll ask you, do you want email? They'll ask you if you want email with your domain. You should just always, whenever you're acquiring one, just click yes and just go through O365. That way you're sending from a known safe sender. Microsoft, MailChimp, et cetera, do a really good job keeping themselves off a block list so people can send you pesky ads. So definitely recommend using them. Now to stay out of spam, spam filters, if you're not familiar, are glorified text scanners. SMTP is generally a text-based protocol, so it will read it, effectively do the equivalent of Control F for certain words. And if you have a certain word, it goes, this is spam if you hit enough ticks in the box anyway. So each word adds up to a total score. If you cross the score, you're banned, you're spam, you're getting banned outright, or you're going to spam. If you avoid, okay, who here knows the C word in phishing? Click. Never tell a user to click stuff. Click might be the most highest score word of any phishing campaign. If you write anything with the word please click, you are going banned instantly. So if you avoid common phishing cliche, I almost said click, that was close. Avoid fish cliche, you'll generally be okay. This is going back to tailoring your email to specific targets and teams and organizations. So it's a really cool thing. A lot of the annoying marketing emails do follow phishing cliche. So if you copy their formatting, sometimes you can actually bypass them. A quick little story time. When I used Adobe products more, would get a ton of marketing emails from Adobe, and these things just looked like phishing emails. And I thought, that's weird. How do they stay out of filters? Like, yeah, they're a good domain, but it's getting a threat score. How are they doing it? So I actually copied part of the footer of it, and I put it in my own phishing email and put every phishing cliche word I could think of, went right through. Turns out some filters actually have a whitelist of certain text and footers that will lower your score. And a lot of common senders, such as like Microsoft, Adobe, et cetera, and their little footer, like this is from so-and-so trademark. If you put that there, it can actually help your score. So corporate and security whitelisting can actually help you there in that regards. Few more words to avoid are install and upgrade, accept some changes, just generic. We've all seen these before. If you change your font to Unicode, you can actually bypass some of the bad words. So if you have a font that looks like the letter C in click, but then the rest of it is, it's actually just some weird character in another language. The computer sees it as something entirely different, and the Control F that effectively the spam filter is looking for doesn't see it. It sees it as something new entirely. So you can use some fancy encoding to bypass some of the email controls. Using the span tag actually helps as well. If you're using URL or HTML encoding, you can put things inside a span tag and just make a really big email and add a bunch of white space as well, and it will not render. The Control F in the scanner effectively doesn't see this as malicious, or if you see a bunch of white space, and it can only read so much at a time. So if you add a ton of white space to the bottom of the page, it may crash the scanner and then bypass the detection. Let's see, talked about this already with Adobe Pro. Guess I'm getting ahead of myself. Guess I've rehearsed one too many times. Bots will automatically click links. We've all seen bots. If you're a defender, you use a ton of web crawlers and scanners. Yeah, if only we had a technology that could prevent bots and scanners from clicking our phishing links. So user clicks a link. So a way we can do that is, the first time a link is detonated, it goes to a benign website that doesn't host anything. But on the second click, on even number of clicks on the tracking, it'll send to the real site. AI bots and scanners are getting more privy to this. So this only works if the website sees a link as well with the bot. So it may, sorry, I ended up messing my shoulder up. Sorry, if you see me go like this, I swear I'm not hiding something behind my back. I just messed my shoulder up. Sorry. Bots usually click links and email addresses. If you have any kind of like safe links, for example, that's what it does. Is you're telling a bot to go click the link and look at it for you. On even number of clicks, you can have it go to the real legitimate payload. Maybe we're hosting it in AWS or GitHub pages, and that'll contain a link, or they can actually download a malicious exe or a malicious document, or that's where our true payload lives. That only works if the website sees a link. If you just send it a text-based it, but the link, they can just tell them to copy and paste it into the browser. They'll probably do it. We saw this for a while there. There was those fake CAPTCHAs that had you run, Windows key R and then run malicious PowerShell. So if you tell users to copy and paste something, they will. This has been proven before. So if only we had a technology that prevented bots from I guess I forgot to put the CAPTCHA photo, for crawling web pages. But yeah, CAPTCHA. CAPTCHAs are really good for phishing payloads, because whenever a UTM or a email filter or bot scanner crawls it, it sees the CAPTCHA and can't go anywhere. So we can actually stick CAPTCHAs in front of our payloads, and then the security products can actually see what we're scanning, and they mark it as safe because it's just a CAPTCHA. Adding a bunch of HTTP 302 redirects to our pages as well. A user doesn't see it, but a computer sees it and gets really annoyed and may give up after a while. I don't really recommend it, but just from user experiences, the user might get annoyed, but a computer, if you get enough 302s, it will stop following the redirect after a while, and that can give up. Add a JavaScript pop-up to your phishing pages that have to accept, you have to accept GDPR cookies, because that can stop crawlers and bots as well. If a CAPTCHA is too annoying for the user. I'd say we've already talked about the content on different clicks. You can actually fingerprint the browser. So if your organization has browser security policies, so you can't install obscure things, you can actually have a policy to hunt for that specific user agent. So a user agent's kind of like a fingerprint for your web browser, for those who aren't familiar. So whenever you go to a web page, you can say, I'm using Chrome version whatever on Windows, and the page can load dynamically to better optimize itself for your browser and computer. But if your organization's has that standard, you can hunt for that specific fingerprint instead of a known bot one that might be different. That could be another way to bypass bots and what hackers are doing. You can set firewall rules to only have a outbound IP address or domain of the organization. There are a million web crawlers and scanners on the internet, so if they see your phishing page, one might be smart enough to detect that you are a phishing page or a very clearly stated malicious web page. So if you're on an engagement, ask your client or you get your organization's outbound IP address and then set a firewall rule to it to contain the phishing engagement to a known subset of people. Use old domains. Don't just buy a fresh one. 1 year is best, I would say. Even older, and it's even better than that, that's classified. Don't put your payload on the same URL as the phishing message if you can help it. If you have downloads.mydomain.com, have your payload be hosted somewhere else through like an S3 bucket or on GitHub, through like a release page on GitHub, link it directly. Some of the crawlers, if you haven't set this before, can detect that, and then it will automatically go to VirusTotal or another scanning firm and potentially detect malware. One might bypass it, another might detect it. So if you can have those spread out, it helps with your overall OPSEC with phishing. Modify the website if you do the cloning, or if you use AI, add a personal touch to it. I think we're all getting a little privy now to what's written by AI and what isn't. There's a human element to it. There's a little bit of a soul behind every paragraph. Edit it a little bit to make it feel a little bit more human, as well as adding the security controls, like the pop-ups and the CAPTCHAs, like we had mentioned before. Don't just clone a blank website, add a download here button and call it a day. Take the time to tailor it down a bit. Then use wildcard TLS as well. Make sure you're using HTTPS. There's just no reason to use HTTP anymore for any of this. For one, if you're doing not a payloaded phish and we're doing one where we're just collecting usernames and passwords, we don't want that transmitting in clear text. We're just not doing anyone a service there. TLS wildcard certificates, if you need to, are trivial to set up. This can be done freely with Let's Encrypt from EFF. If you haven't checked out EFF, please do. They're an amazing organization. Yeah, host your payloads on Google Docs, GitHub Pages, OneDrive. Be creative with your payload types. Outlook blocks 120 different executable attachment types just by itself. Fileless collection is good as well. Now that we've got a good domain, we sent our email and it's gotten through some filters. We haven't hit a spam filter. We avoided the C word. We have a good web page for them to direct to. They clicked it. It's now getting a CAPTCHA or a pop-up just to refresh where we're at on the engagement. Now, where does that link they click actually lead? So host your actual payload. Google Docs, GitHub Pages. There's a million different living off the land websites you can use. Check out your organization's block policy for Outlook. There's, I said, over 120 just by itself. Hackers are getting creative with it, and some file types are weirder than others. If someone's sending you a really weird executable that you've never heard of, it's probably malicious, and Microsoft gets that. Getting fileless collections are even better as well. So a problem with dropping executables to disk, at least, is you now have to contend with EDR, application whitelisting, the Splunk log saying someone downloaded something weird and ran it. There's network, it's going to beacon back home to me with our command and control server. There's a lot of variables there. If you do a fileless collection, aka harvest a username and password, there's a pretty good chance that they have some kind of external logging, such as like a remote desktop or a VPN client. So once you have the credentials or a good session token that you've stolen, you can just log into that and then start the actual campaign from there, red team campaign there. So you don't always have to drop a highly developed and custom payload right out the gate. Sometimes just asking for a password is still good enough. Take that one with a grain of salt to your own organization, though. You know what you're running if you have some kind of external remote desktop presence or VPN. So if you're not, then you're kind of forced into a payload from there. I'm not going to talk about how to write malware that gets around EDR, application whitelisting, et cetera. That could be its own talk entirely. Although if you'd like to talk about that, I am in the hallways and absolutely love talking about that. I'm not shy, or I am shy, but I'm not afraid to talk. So if anyone wants to walk up and discuss that, more than happy to. Typically, you want to embed the actual download links with HTML and JavaScript. And a good way to get around signatures, though, is password protecting zip files. So much like a lot of things, there's a lot of just static text finders, even in EXEs or malicious documents. If you hit that certain text, you get a score, and it's blocked, like actually a lot of security products. So if you password protect the zip files, it scrambles the text. So the actual static control F that your security product's doing does not work. And then just usually you can just tell the user the password either in a separate email or just embedded somewhere in the email where the protection can't find it, or it's not smart enough to put 2 and 2 together on the zip file. You can use MIME types and have like encoded data. So a MIME type, for anyone who's not familiar, there's very different, not all web pages are created equal. So if you have weird MIME types are a way for the browser to tell you how to, oh, this is how I read the data, this is how I read the web page, this is text, this is a web page, this is just blank data separated by commas. It's a way to kind of prepare and tell the browser how to load things. If you use weird MIME types, sometimes you can get around certain protections. For example, a text-based MIME type is generally pretty benign because it's just text. If you don't actually read the context and see what's going on overall, like, oh, it's just a static text page. There's nothing malicious here. Oh, it copy and paste a link. That's weird. You can usually ask your users to just right-click the application and remove Mark of the Web. Mark of the Web is a security control. Every time you download an unsigned or signed file from the internet, it gets a little tag in the properties. And the first time you run it, or at least the first couple times, it'll be ran with more heavy scrutiny on your security products. You can turn it off, thankfully, for the attacker. And users are usually pretty happy to, so this application might work. To ensure it runs, please, there's that word again, click. Please disable it by going into the properties of the file and turning it off. And they're generally pretty happy to do that. Another good file type to do is ISO, or a disk image file. So a really neat thing about ISO is they're read-only. Once you have an ISO file, they cannot be modified. And when you double-click them, they act like a folder. This bypasses that Mark of the Web I'd mentioned earlier, and they can just double-click it and run their application as they would want, just like it were a CD or a DVD. So just a quick recap of phishing infrastructure for anyone who's not familiar. You would need some kind of mail sender, because you have to send mail in a phishing campaign. Duh. So usually O365 is good for this. You would want MailChimp or something of that nature, just some way to send an email that's going to keep you off of a block list. The standard still is GoPhish. It is a tool used for, literally designed for phishing campaigns. Be wary when downloading and running things straight away, as a lot of tools have signatures built in. GoPhish, fun fact for the defenders here, GoPhish has a custom email SMTP header called x-gofish. That's a really good way to tell if someone's trying to phish me, is if there's a header that literally says, I'm trying to phish you. So if you actually do these tools, please read the code, and if you see something weird like x-gofish sender header, you should remove it and recompile it to blend in better. You would need a web server or some variation to host a web page. GoPhish can do this, but it's not always recommended for more complex web pages. So you would want to host something, GitHub Pages, an S3 bucket. Host that link where the user is going to click. Use freeware. Set a good domain if you can, or just use the domain given to you by GitHub or the S3 bucket or whatever you're using. Make sure you're configuring your DNS with your security. There's no reason to not have SPF or DKIM. It looks really weird if you don't anymore. And you want it to look as real as possible when getting through. Evil GenX 2 and 3 is another tool you should be using as well if you're going the fileless route. So, so not every C2 is created equal, and sometimes you don't need one to start. Evil GenX 2 is a man-in-the-middle framework that steals session tokens, usernames, and passwords from things like O365 or there's a number of things, but most people use it for O365 because they can get around conditional access. Once you have conditional access, only works until you have a session token. At least it did. They have a policy now that you should turn on. This basically, you can get the session token and import it to your own browser, and then I'm suddenly that user. So conditional access is great geolocation-wise until I have your session token, then it doesn't matter. And then you would want your traditional C2 infrastructure from there to go ahead and start actually shifting into the red team phase once you have successful clicks and detonations, or if you get a username and a password or a session token, and then you log into the remote desktop service or like a VPN or something, and then you're just kind of in as the user. So I just want to give a quick shout out again to Forrest Kasler. He has a book called Fisherman's Tackle Box. If you liked this talk, or if you're interested in more phishing as a whole, this is an excellent book. It is on Amazon. It's pretty short and sweet too, so you can have it read in a day. A lot of talks and topics covered in today's talk did come from this book and some of his public posts. So yeah, shout out to Forrest overall, as he does a great job in his research in phishing and email security. I think I kind of sped that, but are there any questions about this? Did I go through anything too fast, too slowly? You just want to throw a rotten tomato at me?
So you talked about obtaining, usually older URLs, things like different domains. How would you recommend purchasing them with it not being traced back to you?
Okay, I'm just going to repeat the question to the mic just for the recording. So he asked whenever we purchase old domains that had expired, how we would get them to not trace back to us. There are tools that track expired domains and web pages that track expired domains that you can register for, and then once it sees a domain expire from a known DNS provider, you can, basically there's a big list and you can just click them and it takes you to the purchase page immediately because they had expired. Typically my team will sit on those, and if we see one that's very healthcare oriented or something that would involve like patient care, we'll do that and sit on those. A lot of the domain providers have this thing called domain privacy enabled. I know that's what they call it in GoDaddy. I think some of the other providers have named something else. So effectively, it hides your information from the whois stuff. So whenever so your name, phone number, email, if you click whois or click the DNS provider, it won't just tell you who it is, so you won't get a million spam calls, is what it's designed for. But it secondarily works as, hey, you don't know who I am, but I have this domain. So it's a way to shield yourself as the domain privacy. It's worth the extra couple bucks. .us domains, however, you cannot do that. So if you have to use a .us top-level domain, you cannot do domain privacy. If you register one of those, you're going to get a million spam calls about people wanting to build you your totally cool website. Ask me how I know. I'm still getting them to this day. It was 5 years ago. Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? Yep. Yes, sir.
I'm seeing more chatter about steganography being used to get payloads smuggled in. Something that you play with at all?
It is not. I haven't looked into steganography too much. Going once, going twice. All right, yes, thank you everyone for attending my talk. I know that was kind of fast. And if anyone thinks of anything else, I will be walking around for today and tomorrow. Feel free, honestly, just feel free to stop me and ask them. I am shy, but I'm always happy to talk.